Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Training. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always,
we are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters, and man, we have a great show for you.
Good morning. What is happening, man? Thank you guys for tuning in. That's right. It is time for Tuesday Training, man. We do this every Tuesday, every single Tuesday, right here, live from Insurance Syndicate headquarters in Austin, Texas. We bring this show to you. Always the goal is to bring you tactical information, stuff that you can put in your business and actually use to start making money, start helping more people, start growing your business today. And that is exactly what we're going to do. We have a great guest. I'll be bringing her on here in a bit. But as always, I got some news for you guys. So a few items that I just want to run through. And of course, I'm in the Medicare space, so you know that a lot of the news I talk about is in the Medicare space. And we're going to kick off right here with a little article by AARP on 7 changes you're going to see in the Medicare space in 2025. A lot of these you already know about, but let's hear it straight from AARP, right? Some key takeaways. Changes from the Inflation Reduction Act take effect next year. Yep, that's been a very hot topic out there. Lower out-of-pocket limits on Part D drug plans erases the donut hole. You might find that weight loss drugs are covered to treat other medical conditions. Your Medicare Advantage plan may not stay the same. Look for mid-year statements from your MA plan. Caregivers for loved ones with dementia, but dementia may now be eligible for respite care, and more mental health counselors are encouraged to roll as providers. That one I really like because Medicare recently increased the reimbursement to people in the behavioral health category, which are typically the group of providers that either A, don't accept Medicare, or B, they don't accept Medicare assignment. So the fact that they've increased that reimbursement to those providers is great news because now that means more doctors accepting Medicare, more doctors accepting Medicare assignment and not charging excess charges. But a few other little key items, and this is great content, man. For some of you guys that are out there educating your audience, putting content together, whether it's written content, video content, etc., I highly encourage you to peel your ideas off of news like this right here, right? So running through a few of these changes, ARP says, hey, back in 2023, we know that we covered insulin capped at $35 a month. Excellent. 2024, they expanded eligibility for assistance, for financial assistance in the Part D Extra Help program. And they also helped price negotiate for 10 of the most expensive drugs. That was dropped last week, as I remember, or I put that group out there, that group of drugs. You should see that in the group. One of the biggest changes taking effect in 2025, it says here, is when Part D plans must cap out-of-pocket spending on covered drugs at $2,000 a year. That will have a ripple effect on Part D and Medicare Advantage plans, other costs and coverage, making it especially important to review your options during open enrollment this year, right? Open enrollment kicks off 10/1. It's not even open enrollment. It's the annual election period, but that's what they all call it anyway. But it kicks off October 1st. Everybody's starting to see new plans now. But I mean, this is the year that our client should absolutely not sit on the sidelines and should absolutely be proactive and review their plan. So this will go through, I'm not going to go through each one of these, right? But I'll get this article in the group. It's going to go through all of the different changes that are expected, the 7 items that they're talking about. And ultimately, the bottom line, I think, is the big piece here. And it's something that a lot of us have been saying about the Inflation Reduction Act and what is going on. But the bottom line right here by ARP, you may see a big variation in premiums, co-payments, and covered drugs during the open enrollment period this year. Look at the annual notice of change that your plan must send in September, outlining changes to your plans. That's one there. And guess what? It just keeps going. Let's check this article out right here from Fortune Well. It's sponsored and presented by CVS Health, so it is a bit of an advertorial. But it says pretty simply right here at the top headline, why this year's Medicare annual notice of change will be vital reading for beneficiaries. definitely vital reading. I remember seeing a survey or a report, an analysis, if you will, by Deft Research, which kind of keeps their finger on the pulse of the Medicare space. And they had made a comment in one of these reports. I wish I could remember specifically when it was, but they said that on average, only 11% of Medicare beneficiaries change their plan during the annual election period. Only 11%. And I thought that was pretty low considering the seeming amount of churning that does happen during AEP. Only 11%. But then they further said in that article that they estimate 48% of Medicare beneficiaries will need to change their plan this year. So it's definitely a year that it's vital for these clients out there that will be sending out an annual notice of change. I don't know what you guys do in regards to informing your clients about October 1st and the annual election period. Obviously, all of the insurance carriers that they work with send out their own annual notice of change, which shows how their plan will be adjusting for the following year. You should be sending out your own annual notice of change to your clients, right? We send our own out. We send it out through text for the people we can text. We send it out in the mail for people that obviously we have their address, which is all of our clients. And we send it out in email to our entire database, not just our clients. We're doing something a little different this year. In our annual notice of change, we are including a white paper that we wrote on the Inflation Reduction Act and both its positive and its adverse effects on how it's going to affect your drug coverage this year. So a lot of stuff going on, but I'll jump through a few key points in this article, right? It says, what is the annual notice of change? We all know what that is. That is the letter that goes out again that informs them of their benefits, what they will look like the following year. Surprising effects, it says. Largely due to a major change in Medicare in 2025, the new 2,000 cap on out-of-pocket prescriptions for Part D plan. Man, looks great on paper, right? It looks great on paper. But ultimately what it says right here is that could mean higher premiums, higher deductibles, higher copays, and possibly substantially higher than in 2024. Moving on down. Right, it talks a little bit more here. Where did the one go that I wanted to grab? Here it is. A new program to avoid the big premium hikes. Some of you remember, because I dropped it. It came out July 29th. CMS released basically an emergency memo with a new premium stabilization demonstration that is definitely going to increase the cost that Medicare is spending now to private plans. But they issued it as an effort to stabilize the premium spikes. Because as you know, premium bids came in at 3 times the average of 2024. So instead of $64.28 being the average plan premium, they jumped all the way up to $179.45. That's triple. So when they realized the snafu they made, they released an emergency memo, said, hey, we're going to throw out you a new subsidy that will average $142.67 per plan per month with 22 million members. Do some math. That's about a $37 billion check for first year alone. That's just 2025. That represents a little less than a 10% increase in average Medicare funding to private plans. Currently, Medicare funds private plans to the tune of between 400 and 500 billion. So they're going to throw another 37 billion at it first year. We'll see how that continues in 2026 and beyond. But they talk about it right here, right? It says Medicare will provide a special subsidy to those insurers in 2025 in exchange for avoiding slapping members with exorbitant premium hikes. And then further, it says right here, it should take what might have been a 40 to 50% increase. And personally, I think that number's conservative or higher, down to probably a 25%. So this guy here that's in this article is saying that your average premium increase on standalone drug plans, you're probably looking around 25%. That could be right. I think it could still be a lot higher because for the carriers that are participating in the premium stabilization model, they are capped at being able to increase their premiums by $35 a month. And I believe it's also it is a 6% total cap as well on how they can increase that premium. So certainly we might see some smaller ones, but I mean, I'm thinking about some of those people that are out there on the 50 cent and the $1 WellCare drug plans that are no longer paying commissions to us as brokers. You probably heard about that too. I'm wondering what their premium is going to look like. Is it possible that it could go up from 50 cents to 35.50? I don't know, but they're going to receive some sticker shock. I can pretty much guarantee you. And as we all kind of realized here, we knew about it last year, maybe even the year before, but we really know about it this year. It's come to be proven to us. What we all were saying is that WellCare was basically just doing a data grab with their 50-cent drug plan to basically scoop up a bunch of data, because they know that if you're on a 50-cent drug plan, you're probably on a Medicare supplement plan. And now they have that data to come back and directly market to your clients to try to move them to a Medicare Advantage plan and steal them from you. That's the way it goes. Welcome to the game. Let's jump into another one real quick. 3.6 million Americans could be covered for Wegovy under the new Medicare rule, right? That's one of the new semaglutide diabetic heart complication weight loss drugs that's out there. So they are looking at covering this drug for roughly 3.6 million Americans. It's a weight loss drug, obviously, but that's not why they're going to let them have it. It's designed for people that have a high BMI and also heart disease. So if you have a high body mass index, if I remember correctly, and heart disease, you might get covered by Wegovy. And just to give you an idea, maximum annual cost of Medicare could be as high as $34 billion if Wegovy is prescribed to all patients with high BMI and a history of heart attack, stroke, hardened arteries, or chest pain. So pretty pricey drug. It's got a list price of $13.50 for a 28 supply, according to GoodRx.com. But hey, good news, man. It's a drug that's out there that people need, but obviously it's going to be a pricey one. And anybody that's on that's probably going to hit their easy $2,000 cap on their drug spend. So quite a bit there. And then one final one I want to show you guys. And I'm not going to go through this whole one, but I want to point out something very specific in it. This is written by Sanford Health. It says your guide to changes in Medicare Part D. I will make sure all of these articles are in the group after the show. But here's what I want to go. I'm not going to go through all the changes, right? We've gone through the changes over a couple of different of these shows. One of the best ones, if you missed it, was, I believe, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, that we talked to Norma Johnson, who is absolute savant when it comes to understanding the pharmaceutical industry and Part D and everything that's going on. Go check that one out. It's on YouTube if you want to look for it. But what I really wanted to point out in this article, if you are an agent out there and you're shooting content or you're writing content, these 5 questions right here are this is your content. These are the questions that your clients should and probably will be asking you. So grab this article. If you're wondering, what the hell do I talk about? Grab this article, grab those 5 questions and answer them on video. If it were me, I would answer all of them in one long video, and then I would cut them up into shorter videos and shoot them out there. That is a great way. You can probably get 10 to 12, maybe 15 pieces of content out of that one little section right there. Pretty simple, right? Everybody wonders why my wife does so good in the business. It's because she is a content maniac. She is constantly putting out content, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, etc. And all she does is educational content, and the leads keep flowing. Well, here's some of your information right here. So again, I'll put that in the group, but that is the news for today. Obviously, some pretty well-known stuff we've been talking about for a while. Certainly that Wegovy thing is going to get in there as well, and it's going to be a raucous AEP. We all know. But speaking of growth, changes, performance, etc., our guest that we have today, I met at a BNI group. Some of y'all know this because I posted in the group. I've talked about it. Y'all know I'm really big in the networking and building relationships and so forth. It's one of the things I'm super passionate about. So I joined a BNI group recently, got super lucky. My buddy Eric Hamadi, you guys all know Eric Hamadi. And hey, Eric, if you're tuning in, man, hope you're doing better out there. Sorry to hear about your recent accident, but I pray that you are doing much better and recovering fast. If you know Eric, he put out a video, said he got into an accident with his bike, hurt himself pretty bad. So send him some love through Facebook DM or whatever. But Eric has an office here in our syndicate headquarters that he occasionally visits and hangs out as a secondary auxiliary office for him. And he invited me to a BNI group. He was like, man, you need to come check out this group, see what you think, have a free lunch, meet a few people. I get in the group. There's 42 members that's super active. And the biggest thing that really turned me on to the BNI group and sold me on why I should join it, other than the fact that they were 42 amazing professionals and very active, is that they track all the metrics for the revenue that they generate. I've been part of a lot of networking groups in my career, from LaTip to now BNI and a few other smaller ones. And certainly Joe and I have thrown some networking events of our own. But I've never been to a group that actually tracked their metrics and how much revenue they are generating as a group between referrals and sharing business. And this group is pushing $2 million in closed revenue for the last 12 months as a collective group. So that was absolute proof to me that, like, hey, this is a group that's active. This is a group that has proof of concept. And because they're a no compete group, they're only allowed one person for each seat classification, right? If you're a P&C guy, real estate agent, business performance coach, like we're about to bring on, et cetera, they only allow one person from each category. And lo and behold, they didn't have a Medicare seat. This was a group that's been around for over 20 years. They did not have a Medicare seat, and they had 42 super active members, including about 5 people that are the absolute best type of referral partners for me already in the group. So no brainer. I jumped in, joined immediately, and it's already been going gangbusters. I'm already getting referrals. We're already going to be starting to close some revenue here that I can report back to the group, and super, super happy. So this young lady, if I can call her that, I met in the group. She was there on my first day in the group, giving a presentation on how to increase your revenue as a business. That's what she does. She's an author. She's got 3 books published, and she is also a doctor. And we're going to bring her on and talk to her about profit acceleration in your business and business growth strategies, because that's her jam. So please do me a favor and give me a little warm virtual welcome for Dr. Marie Pappas. What is going on, my friend?
Oh, not too much this morning. Happy to be here. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be on your podcast. It's always interesting, even the background, to keep up with the Medicare stuff too, with my background.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've already had some conversations with your mom. Thank you for that referral. She's in great hands. She's doing very well. So I look forward to continuing to help and guide her with whatever she needs. But real quick, right? This is an insurance group. We got almost 9,000 agents in this group. Most of them are independent business owners, right? Self-employed guys. They're all looking to grow, produce more revenue, reduce their expenses, all of those things to make more money so that they can pay their bills and just keep growing and take care of their clients. So take just a quick moment and let them know who you are. Introduce yourself and just a little broad overview of who Dr. Marie Pappas is.
All right. So as you mentioned, Dr. Marie Pappas, I like to refer to myself as a profit acceleration and business growth specialist. So that is what I do. Quick background, chiropractor by my education and training. So years ago, as I like to say, my husband and I built our own practice from scratch. That was in the suburbs of Chicago. And we decided we didn't want to live there anymore. And we made a transition and moved here to Texas. Then I practiced for a couple more years, and then I ended up transferring. So, especially from the standpoint of business growth and helping businesses, when I was in practice, I had a niche of helping people with their stress. So adrenal fatigue and stress associated with life. So now I just transferred that into business. So how can I give people the tools, the strategies, tell them step by step what they need to do to lessen their stress with their business. And then that way, just a better quality of life for them, better quality of life for their family. Because as you know, work doesn't always stay at work. That always goes home with you. And I know that from personal experience. I know what it's like to be gone too much and have my daughter say to me, "Mommy, you don't like me at night," because I was exhausted at the end of my days. So that's what actually led me to take a little change of my career and go for something that, gives me a better quality of life and also gives me that time freedom that I, so desperately needed to have with my daughter. So
yeah, burnout is definitely one of those things that I would say any self-employed person struggles with or is a challenge that they have to battle. Certainly business owners, small business owners. I mean, not that I'm burnt out by any means, but I can understand it when I have days like yesterday where I spent 14 hours in the office working bell to bell, right? And that's not an uncommon thing. I know plenty of people out there that do it. I have friends in this industry that have pushed themselves so hard that they have had health issues because of it, et cetera. So I can definitely understand when you're coming from in that regards. And then especially when you think of it from the idea of now I'm being separated from my family and my family and home life is lacking or suffering, that's not getting the attention it deserves because I'm forced for profitability nature's sake to be, because I need to grow my business, make sure I'm profitable, to make sure I can pay my bills and keep thriving. So I'm forced to drive these types of hours, these types of days. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But I want to just kind of dive right into it with what you think are probably some of the biggest or most common mistakes that a business owner makes that hinders their growth and their profitability.
So a couple things. One, I think people tend to make it too complicated. There's really just some foundational things that business owners need to focus on in order to grow their business. Also, too, a lot of times the business owners are lacking clarity in their messaging. And there's a saying, too, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So that's a big thing I work on clients with, too, is really honing in on your messaging. Who is your ideal client? We focus on what's called a market dominating position. So it's, what is the problem that you're trying to solve for your ideal clients, but really you're honing in on the hot buttons too. And I would say it's less about us, what we do as the owners of our business. It's more about what are our ideal clients looking for. So how can we serve them and speak to them in their language, not our language? And the other thing too, of course, with me being a profitability and growth specialist, a lot of times business owners just focus on revenue and they tend to forget sometimes about the profitability. There's a saying in my world too, that revenue feeds the ego and profit feeds the family. So you can have, for example, $1 million business, but if you have $950,000 in expenses, then kind of who cares, if you have $1 million business. So that's what I focus on, is how can we, make sure that as you're growing your business, and yes, you're building that revenue, but how can you make sure that you are growing that profitability in your business as well?
Absolutely. What do you think are some of just the most common, like, overlooked items when they're looking at their business, and like, how do I increase profit? Like, what are maybe a couple of simple ideas right up front that you can say, hey, and keep in mind, and I'm only going to say this because I've already heard some of your presentation on this. You're talking to insurance agents who cannot change the price of their product. It is what it is. Right.
Yes.
So
and I
they
understand
don't have that ability.
Correct. And for other businesses, that is an easy thing. I'll say relatively easy thing is to be able to increase the prices. Obviously, there's certain industries where that's not going to be an option. So another thing that's a quick return is, where can you cut back on expenses? And, that can be anything from potentially computer software to different, we'll say, what was I going to say? Like, depending on staffing too, right? We all want staff. We need help and assistance, and that's a great opportunity for growth as well too. But if you are hiring on additional staff, you got to make sure that your ROI is there, right? That they're making you more money than what they're costing you too. So just taking an assessment, of your financials. And this is something I get into depth with clients as well too, is, when was the last time you looked at your P&L? And I always say, hopefully there's a P and not just an L in your profit and loss, right? So that's an easy thing to do. Print off your P&L, see where you're at. Look at 2023, see what 2023 looked at, right? And then now you can look at maybe the first half of 2024. What are some of those larger expenses that you have on your P&L, and can you make any changes to those? So once again, from an insurance professional standpoint, obviously you can't increase the price per insurance quotes, I guess we'll say. However, are there other avenues and things that you can look at? So increasing revenue is going to be a volume thing, right? How can you get more clients in the door? Things like that too. But the other easy thing is, what are some of those expenses that you can cut? Just be vicious through your P&L and start slicing things away that you can.
Absolutely. And exactly from that context, what are some of the expenses that you've seen business owners, if they're going through a P&L review process, like, what are some of the common expenses that are just absolutely probably unnecessary? Like, where do you find that they have their biggest, mistakes that they're making, or things that they're getting that they probably really don't need?
Yes. Credit card fees. How about that? And not just necessarily your annual fees, but I have some clients who have enough money to pay off their credit cards each month, and they choose not to. So then they are incurring the interest fees essentially for credit cards. And it can be even from like a software component. There's so many more software programs out there that are all encompassing, right? So you don't have to pay for 5 different services to have CRM, to email marketing. A lot of them have it all in one, and they're a cheaper price point doing those combined ones versus the individual. I mean, of course, a little caveat to that is there are different industries that have their own specific programs and software sometimes that they need as well too. And I understand that as well. For some industries, if they're getting into a lot of the COGS, the cost of goods sold, it's building those relationships with your suppliers. Can you work with them and say, hey, I will only use you. What can you offer me as a discount in return? Or look at competitors and see what kind of price rates you can get. So it's comparing competitors to each other in that regard. But then when it comes to the business standpoint, I do things a little differently from how you're going to compete with your competitors. But That's something in that regard too, is can you get reduced costs for anything else that you're working with too? So so those are some of the areas there. And then it depends on contractors, because once again, the more employees or contractors you have on staff, sometimes those are a big price point too. But of course, it's just making sure that you're getting your ROI on those contractors that you have.
Absolutely. I can definitely say in our industry, technology has been a huge change. And I know it's true in all industries, but I can only speak about it from the context of insurance. There's a ton of tech gadgets out there. There's a ton of different types of CRMs and automation tools and this database that'll help you find this answer or this thing that'll help you do this little sequence or process a little faster. Maybe it's less manned, and again, it's more automated or AI.
Mm-hmm.
Those are definitely some areas that I think of, like, do you really need all of those little tech gadgets in your system? Do you really need the most sophisticated crazy tools? As an independent agent, I think that's probably an area that agents could easily dig into and be like, I'm really not using Zapier that much, or I'm really not using 2 CRMs. Like, why do I have 2 CRMs, or why do I need this? That's been a big. Have you seen that with other clients? Or like, if you're helping them kind of do a review and you're like, what are all these little memberships that you have for all these different programs, tools, softwares, whatever?
Absolutely. And people ignore them and they forget about them, right? So that's why it's important to make sure that you are keeping up to date with your financials. So, if you have an annual membership for something and then you forget about it, and then a year later you're getting charged again, but maybe you haven't even used that program at all. So I have definitely come across that with clients as well too. So it's being aware of, what are you being charged for? Are you even using any of these programs? And if not, get rid of it. And hopefully before that next annual payment comes up too. So that definitely is a thing. And there's something to be said with some of these programs that will make life simpler, right? The more you can automate some things, the better your business is going to go. It's going to run smoothly. You're going to have more efficiency. You can have automation set up. You can have what's called a drip campaign set up too. So the more that you can have that stuff in place earlier on in your business, the easier that's going to be for you. So then you're not spending your time and your mental energy sending all these one-off emails here and there. You can already have a plan in place of how you want things to go for people who get into your system and into your world, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense completely. And looking at that same thing, right? Let's look at it from because we're talking about reviewing your P&L, which is basically looking at data. And obviously data, in my opinion, is extremely important when you're thinking about it from the aspect of shaping maybe your growth strategy, right? What are the metrics, in your opinion, that businesses that are looking at growth, right? We're not just looking to maintain, we're looking to do some growth. What are some of the metrics that you think a business or business owner should prioritize when they're looking at that type of information?
A big one, and especially in your industry as well, too, is looking at those leads and conversions. I hate to say it, for all businesses, all industries, it's a numbers game. And the hard thing sometimes for business owners to do is to get the emotion out of it. But when you just start looking at the data, then you can try to take some of your emotion out of it, and you're really just looking at facts. So looking at that conversion rate, right? How many leads are you getting in? And then how many of those leads are converting into your paying clients? And if you're not getting enough leads in, that could be part of the reason why your business isn't growing. But then also, if you're looking at that conversion rate, maybe you are getting a lot of leads in, but you're really not converting anyone. So there's a couple areas that you have to look at when you're looking at that conversion rate. So are you getting the proper leads in? And this is kind of where I talk about your messaging. Are you attracting your ideal client for what your product or service offers? So that right there really comes down to your messaging and your marketing. Once again, are you speaking the language of your ideal clients? Have you actually sat down to determine who is your ideal client? Who is it that you want to reach out to? And that takes time. And it's also a matter of looking at some of your competitors to kind of see what are they saying, what is their messaging that they're trying to attract other people into the world. And maybe you do similar things, but then also what do you do differently? What's kind of that value add that you can say that you do differently than competitors to try to attract more of your ideal clients into your world. So really that's the first step, is with your messaging and marketing. Do you have that down? Do you know who you're trying to attract into your world? So once again, that numbers game, so you can get more leads into your world. Then that alone can help that conversion rate, right? Because if you're getting 1,000 leads in, but majority of them are not even your ideal client anyways, that's a waste of your marketing money anyways. So making sure that you're really attracting, speaking to, and it's okay if your marketing and your messaging deters people who are not your ideal clients anyways, because guess what? That's going to be just your time, your money, and your energy. I don't want to say wasted, but not going towards the end goal of getting them into becoming a client. So that's the big thing there. And then from a conversion standpoint, so maybe you are getting a lot of your ideal clients and leads coming in. Then the question is, are you converting them? So that is also that communication that can be part of the sales process with them. Are you hitting on their pain points when you're having a discussion with them? Once again, what are their hot buttons? Because when it comes to people making buying decisions, there's a problem that they have that they don't want, or there's a result that they want that they don't have. So are you finding out what that pain point is? And are you addressing that and bringing that up during the conversation? Because you always want to bring it back to their end goal and relate back to them that way.
Absolutely.
So leads and conversions. And then, of course, the other component, too, is the profitability, right? So you got your gross profit margins, you got your net profit margins. So that's important, too, to keep track of that. There are industry standards because certain industries have more expenses and associated with them, either from a COGS standpoint or just other expenses as well. But making sure you're keeping track of that percentage, too. Making sure that as your business grows and revenue increases, are you able to increase your profitability as well? Or is your profitability shrinking? Or, because sometimes with growth, there's more expenses. So keeping your eye on that too. So leads, conversions, and revenue and profitability are my two top things technically four, to keep an eye on, to keep track of in your business, to see where it's going.
No, 100%. You're spot on there. Like I talk to agents all the time in regards to marketing expenses and so forth, and how to kind of look at those key performance indicators on your marketing, right? Like how much are you paying per lead? But even your per lead cost isn't nearly as important by any means as your cost per acquisition. Like how much does it cost you to actually get a client, right? And then more importantly, what is your average lifetime value on that client? That's some of the metrics that we're looking at. Because one thing is certainly true about insurance is that we generally don't just get paid one time on our client. We're going to get paid for the future years of that relationship that we maintain. So lifetime value becomes a big part of it.
Absolutely.
And you said it perfectly. You're like your ideal client, because if you spend energy talking or marketing to your non-ideal client, it's wasted money, wasted energy, wasted time, probably loss of attitude. If you keep down that road, you're going to feel frustrated because like I keep talking to these people that are not the people I want to talk to, but I'm stuck on the phone with them. And then on the flip side of that, I tell agents a lot like, hey, look, number one, you have to accept the fact that you're never going to get the whole marketplace. The whole marketplace doesn't belong to you. Only a segment of it does. And then trim your marketing down to that. So with that thought process, and we've definitely dialed our ideal client in over here to Vila. Like we know exactly who we're going after 100%. But if you have a client that is struggling with that aspect and you're like, hey, you're spending a lot of time marketing and just kind of like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall, your market, just like you said when you opened the show, you're marketing to everyone, but you're really speaking to nobody, right? So if you have a client of yours that comes to you and is like, I need help really shaping and figuring out who my ideal client is, do you kind of have a process for how you help them discover who that might be?
Yeah. And part of it is a lot of times they say for us in business as business owners that we are we are searching for us 5 years ago, right? So we were our ideal client. So now we're further along than where we once were. So for some people, it helps for them to start there, to think of where they were in what they struggled with and what they needed help with. So sometimes it's a matter of doing that. And sometimes it's literally, I will just say, take pen to paper, not fingers to keyboard, but brainstorm. Just do a brain dump, because we get overwhelmed and we have so much going on and so many thoughts. So just literally write out who are all the possible ideal clients that you can have, and then hone in on those that really fit what you want your future business to look like, right? Who do you want to be serving in the future? So maybe right now, even if someone's newer or just getting started, with their insurance business, but what do they want that to look like? And start doing that now. Is there a specific niche? I know with you guys at Avila over there too, right? You have a specific niche, which is a wonderful thing. So there's an opportunity for that, to just sit and brainstorm. And then there's a process to it. As once you kind of figure out your top couple areas, and you can have a couple of niches. However, when you do your marketing, it has to be separate for each one. You don't want all of your niches to be in one marketing message, because that's going to overwhelm people and that's going to confuse people, and a confused mind doesn't buy. So you can have separate niches, but you have to have separate messaging with that too. But it is really just thinking, where do you see yourself as, your business owner? Who is going to be that ideal client that you want to work with? Either, from a personal standpoint, from your background and history, if there's a certain niche that you want to help, or from a financial aspect too, is there a certain niche that that you may be better off helping and serving, if you want it to be a little more lucrative, right? Because businesses can go both ways with that too. But it's just that process of really brainstorming up those ideas if they're really clueless and have no idea, and then just niching it down, picking their ideal choices. And then it's a process from there. Okay, look at your competitors. What are they saying? What are they not saying? And it's a whole, it's a whole workbook essentially that I have for clients to go through, and it's picking their brains and it's having them come up with these things too. But I also, real quick, I'll put a shout out. I'm reading Building a Story Brand. So I don't know if you've ever read this. It's a great book because it's about really, clarifying your message. Like I said, clarify your message so customers will listen. So it's taking people through a story and a process. Like who's the character, who's the hero? Because for us business providers or service providers, we're the heroes in the stories, or we're assisting, we're the guide. I'm sorry. The characters, our clients, are the heroes. We're just the guides, because that's how people, the psychology of people, that's how it needs to go. Instead of business owners who tend to be like, oh, I do this, I do that, I'm fabulous and great at this, I can do, X, Y, Z. But that tends to turn people off, actually. So you need to speak their language. You need to speak to them, put them as a hero, and we're just going to guide them along the process to achieving whatever goal that it is that our services or products offer them.
That makes perfect sense. And I was thinking of it a little more abstractly from, like, say, a movie or a book or whatever that you might read, some fictional story where you have your hero, the central character, is on a journey of some sort, and then they bump into people along their way that guide them or kind of point them down their path. And I mean, that's well said. I like that. I like that a lot. So let me ask you, who is your ideal client?
Wonderful question. So for me, my ideal client are service providers that are specifically provide a service to their clients. So I jokingly say, like, if you're making knickknacks or, things like that, if you're in the manufacturing component, I will refer you to someone else. But primarily those that are in the service industry. My background being in healthcare, it's a kind of a natural fit in for that too. So anything from the healthcare standpoint, as well as you got your med spas, dentists, chiropractors, right? So any of those professional service providers is a niche for me. Granted, I do help other service providers too. I have some clients in the trades, travel agents. So both luxury fencing, luxury travel agent. So, it's just a little bit of a range. But once again, my messaging is more towards service-based industries, primarily in the healthcare field is who I help. Yeah.
Perfect.
And more so the smaller. I'm not looking for those, those large
Right.
corporations, I'm more the mom and pop because I can have that relation with them, especially if they have their families and knowing, what it is to give your leftovers at the end of the day to your family. And let's make that not happen. Let's help
Absolutely.
things go, smoother and lessen the stress in your business.
I was curious, and I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or something that you discuss with some of your clients, but I was curious, does succession planning come up in those conversations that you're having with some of these people?
It can for some of them. It's when I have clients come in, we really talk about what is the big picture, short
Mm-hmm.
term, long term, what are their end goals as well too. For some people, it's interesting when you have a different viewpoint on it. For some businesses say that a goal is for them to retire in a few years. And it's not uncommon for, especially in some industries, that a dentist or a chiropractor, they end up working less and less hours. Their business performance is going down. Everything's decreasing. And then it's like, well, you're not going to be able to sell your business for as much as you would have hoped for. You need to ramp it back up. We need to build that business, get it in a good position. Maybe that is taken on someone else. So then you can leave, and get out easier down the road versus, that too. That's why I also like even just working with business brokers is good. Cause it's like, okay, well, business owners always want to make more money when they sell their business. And they tend to not realize that their business is not going to sell for as much as they hoped for. And the business owner or the business brokers either may or may not be able to help them, but then there's that frustration there too. So it's like, well, let's work on building your business for another year or two. Then you can sell it, for the price point that you want to get out as well.
Makes sense completely. So you've written 3 books,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Which
I'm
one
trying
is
to think which way.
No worries. Which one is your favorite one? Or if you can only pick one, which one would you say you need to read this one?
I'd actually say the first one, my business wealth strategies, because that is really just getting down to the foundations of things. Those are, we call it the low hanging fruit. What are some of those action steps that you can just take and start implementing right away? And those are some of the things I cover in my workshops as well too, is, we go through them and I want people to be able to have an action plan when they leave. So they're actionable. They're, somewhat quick, we'll say, it depends on how much depth you want to get into some of them, but at least it gives you some ideas on some potentially quick wins to start increasing the profitability in your business. So that one, because it's an easier read, it's, that's why I actually like that one a little more, just because it's less daunting for business owners. Compared to some of the ones that are, that are a little thicker and they get a little more depth on, really getting deeper into other strategies as well. That one's like, okay, what are some of those quick wins? What can you start doing and taking action on sooner than later? So that's why I like that one.
Excellent. What are, just to keep you on the hook a bit, what are some of the things that you are doing in your business right now to help you grow and increase your profits and just ultimately grow your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that is a big thing for me is joint ventures, right? So is finding those people, you kind of mentioned that earlier too, right? With just mentioning B&I, how you already have that niche, right? Who are some of your partners, your referral partners, or people that you can do a joint venture with? Because when you're working with somebody else who already has your ideal clients, and if you are, I would say, morally and ethically in line with that person, that's important too. You just don't want to start a joint venture with someone if you don't agree with how they do things. It makes life easier, right? Because then they have a client base already that maybe you can offer something to that joint venture partner and say like, hey, I can offer, like, for me, like I have these free workshops that I can do, for your clients, for your, say it's a business banker. This can be a value add for your clients, right? So I can do this free workshop for them. It looks good for you. It helps me, it's a win-win situation there too. So that's something, I do mention for prospects / clients as well too, is looking at what we call kind of an event chain. So in my industry being, helping business owners, who are other people who help business owners? It can be anything from a business banker. There's business brokers. There's, CPAs, bookkeepers, attorneys who focus on like business law. So there's all those
commercial
industries.
Property and casualty agents.
Right, there you go. Yeah. So, and it's looking at that event chain. Who are those other professionals that your ideal client are seeking out help for website design, things like that. If it's a new business, right, they're going to be looking for help with a website. So it's making a list of those. And then what you're going to do with that as well is write down, what can I do to help them and their clients? So it's not about, them sending referrals to me, right? So BNI, givers gain philosophy there is, how can I help their clients? What is my value add? What can I offer and bring to the table that helps both the joint venture partner and their clients as well? And then it's kind of one of those, like the law of reciprocity, right? The more I put out, the more I'll get back. And so I believe in that. And that's a big thing too, is finding those joint venture partners, because then it's a little less on your lead gen, right? Because if you have someone bringing clients or prospects to you, that's, less marketing money business owner will have to spend, just, less work, shall I say, right? Because that's a lot of it, is that front end, getting that lead gen going. So that's a big thing for me. And I network too, as you know. I make my rounds, and I've been in BNI for a while now, and even back in my previous life, as I say, as a chiropractor, I was in BNI for over 7 years. So I just like to be involved in the community, my daughter's school, networking. So
yeah, I'm a big believer in, you called it joint ventures. We refer to it as strategic partnerships. Same thing, right? Finding someone where you can exchange value to each other in a strategic manner that helps both of you grow, become more profitable, accelerate, whatever it may be. 100%. Pardon me. You mentioned workshops, and I know you run some workshops from time to time. Are your workshops that you do, are they just, you don't do them live? They're Zoom workshops, right?
Actually, I primarily do in-person live workshops, and I've just started to implement some virtual ones back in. I did some virtual in the past, and then I switched to live, but now I'm going to implement and do both. So each month, my intention is to have at least 2 in-person workshops a month, and then maybe 1 or 2 virtual a month as well. It's, especially I think just with society and how things have been, people are lonely and people need to have more connection, and we've kind of lost it. I mean, Zoom is great, StreamYard, all these platforms are great because it does help us to communicate and be in touch with people that maybe we wouldn't have had that opportunity to. But there's also something to be said too about having that in-person interaction and collaboration as well too. So even at the in-person workshops, at least the attendees can also talk with each other and network with each other while they're there as well. And I always jokingly say too, and I get a pretty good lunch. I feed you pretty good too. If you're on the Zoom one, sorry, you're on your own. You don't get lunch, but but I do offer both. Yeah, because I know from a time standpoint, not everybody can make all the in-person ones. So I am implementing the Zoom ones as well now.
What are you usually talking about in those work? I mean, I assume it's a lot of what we talked about, but when you do that workshop, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of insurance agents out there do workshops. They do seminars like a Medicare 101, or they do a seminar on some of the upcoming changes to the Medicare Part D program or something like that. Similar concept, right? We're getting a bunch of people in the room. We're talking to them about a subject that we're an expert on or perceived expert, and then hopefully that we can bring them in as clients into our book of business. So when you're running a workshop, right, obviously you're not talking about insurance necessarily. You're talking about growth strategies, profit acceleration. What are like your value points that you're putting out in the workshop that work as your value ladder to bring people in to get them into your actual profit center? Like, just curious, like what are you hitting on?
So some of the foundational strategies, just, to kind of the boring part of it, as I'll jokingly say, is, so it's a profit acceleration workshop. So actionable strategies that they can actually start implementing later that day if they choose to do so. So we are getting into some of the financials, a little bit on what numbers really count on your P&L, the ones that you can have an impact on. We get into increasing prices, cutting costs. We get into the joint venture discussion on that as well too. Your marketing and messaging, how to get more leads into your door. So pretty much a lot of things that we already covered today are some of those things. Also, we get into a little bit of upsells, cross-sells, bundling, those sorts of things too. So what can they be doing to implement to increase the value. You mentioned earlier, just, what is the client, the lifetime value of your client, right?
Yep.
So how do you do that? And, so a lot of times it can be, what are those additional things that you can offer? You got your baseline product or service, but what else can you offer to increase that lifetime value of your client? So those are the things we go through and discuss in there too. And then on my end, what I also do is I have access to a pretty amazing proprietary software where I can enter in the numbers of a business. So we can look at your revenue and your profitability, and based off of the software and the different strategies that we can address, it's the amount of work that went into this. I did not create the software. I'm very fortunate to be part of an organization that has created the software, but they can do with pretty near accuracy what that's going to look like 1 year, 5 years down the road, and just to see what the increase in revenue and profitability of that business can be. So that's a nice thing too. And I even say, as I'm going through my workshop, and one thing that we have is a compelling offer that we discuss. So at the end, I mentioned, I'm like, this is my compelling offer to you, is I can do a complimentary assessment on your business. It'll give you a roadmap at the end, and also just the assessment in the report as well, to let you know what you should be doing step by step, because there's so many things all business owners can be doing, but really just focusing on, based off of your goals, what should you be doing and what order should you be working on these different strategies too. So that's that's my offer, for clients is, hey, if you've learned a lot, if you think it was great, let's set up this complimentary assessment. We go through the assessment, and then we just have a discussion, is this something that you need help with? Do you have everything that you need, or do you need help? And we go from there. So, I know a lot of it with insurance is sales and having that communication too. And once again, it is like, what are their pain points? Why do they want to grow their business? And just coming back, to that with them too. So if, you were to have help and guidance with this, would this help you achieve your goals quicker? Because that's always a thing too. You can work out by yourself, but if you have a personal trainer, guess what? You're going to reach your goals a little quicker than you would on your own. Same thing with a business coach. And I always say too, if I'm helping you grow your revenue and profitability of your business, technically, I shouldn't be costing you anything, because I should be making sure that you're earning anything, any of my fees. So it's kind of easier on my ends in some ways, because it's like, technically I should be free, because, I'm going to be teaching you strategies that you should be making that money to be able to pay for me. So
absolutely. No, makes sense completely. You
Yeah.
said something earlier that I just want to point out, and I hope all you guys were listening. She used the word bundle, right? And this is perfect, because we as insurance agents, we can't change the price of our products, right? They're set by the insurance company. That is what it is. We can certainly sell overpriced products if we don't want to have good customer service and retention, but ultimately the prices of our products are fixed. So the best way that we can increase price is through exactly what you said earlier, which is bundling, right? Getting more products to your client to take care of them. And our job already is to mitigate risk, right? Our job is to mitigate as much risk as we can that's affordable for the client and fits their needs, their budget, et cetera. So bundling is one of them. And if you missed it, a couple of weeks ago, I did a bundling training. So make sure you go check that out. Super slick.
Awesome.
One final question. When you're working with the client, what steps do you take to hold them accountable to the advice that you give them?
Yes. Well, that's a great question, because that's part of the point of having a coach too, is holding to the fire. I can be nice when I need to be nice, and I'll also just tell you to GSD if you need a GSD. So, so on my end, it's weekly calls. If someone doesn't schedule with me, I will be sending you an email like, hey, I haven't seen you this past week. Get on my schedule. I also have with that software program as well too, there's a metrics tracker in there. So we keep track of their metrics, leads, conversions, revenue, profitability. So we are keeping track of these things together. So it's a combination of different lessons that I'm going to have them review, different action tasks that they need to take, having weekly calls with me, and also to just making sure that we're keeping track of their metrics, and then monthly keeping track of their financials as well. So it's, all encompassing. We're looking at all that. But yes, I will get on the phone. Usually it's an email, and I get a response back just like, hey, let's schedule our call. We need to follow up. It's been a week or two. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I'm holding accountable. Just really, it is just on my end. I'm following up with my clients and making sure that we are having discussions. And maybe we don't need a call every week. Sometimes
Right.
you need a little more implementation time, and that's totally fine too. Obviously, people have vacations as well. But it is me. I am keeping track just to make sure that we are on track, that we are doing what we should be doing. Sure, sometimes we have our plan, which is great. Sometimes there's different things that come up that we address as we're going through that. And that's also great. We just go through, and whatever the, most pertinent thing is, we address that. But we also have, it's that saying of, you have your short-term tactics and long-term strategy, right? So it's making sure that we're addressing both. Like, what are some of those immediate needs that need to be addressed? What fires need to be put out? But then also too, thinking long-term, okay, what steps are we working on to get to our long-term goal as well? So.
Absolutely. Do you work with any clients just completely remotely, or do you only work with local people here in the Austin area?
So both. Yep. I can,
Okay.
because I don't meet people in person unless they come to my workshop. So all my coaching with them is all virtual. So I usually just do a Zoom call with my clients. I guess we could probably do a phone call, but usually I like to get in, if we're reviewing a website and content on there, we're screen sharing. If we're looking at financials, we're screen sharing. So I actually like just having that Zoom component of it too. So, yep. Anywhere in the continental US, we'll say no, just anywhere in the US. I don't do overseas right now. It's not that I can't, maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future.
I would love speaking to someone with an accent all day, but.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this has been a super pleasure. Thank you for taking time to stop by for Tuesday training. It's absolutely been a pleasure. Certainly, I'll see you later at our BNI event as well. But for our audience out there, man, if there's some folks out there that want to get in touch with you, they want to chat with you a little bit, maybe they just want a copy of your book, maybe they want to schedule a session with you and chat with you and see what they can do maybe to help improve their business, what's the best way to get in touch with Dr. Marie Pappas?
Yeah, absolutely. Heading to my website, and just, you can click on the button to schedule a consultation. It's just a complimentary call we can get on, and we can discuss, where do you want to go? Do you want to come to one of my workshops? Do you want to just have a discussion and set up a time to do one of those complimentary assessments? We can do that too. So my website is mariepappas.coaching.com. So as my name appears on here, mariepappas.coaching.com. And you'll see the links on there. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Easy enough. We'll make sure that link is in the chat as well. Lily's probably putting that in there for us as we speak. And then actually, I lied. One more question. And this is totally tangential, totally off topic. I'm from Houston originally. I grew up native Texan, but I grew up in Houston. And in Houston, there is a famous restaurant chain called Pappas. Right?
Yes.
Don't answer yet, but they've got that started, as I remember, it started as a seafood place. You have Papa Dough, which is kind of the Creole, Louisiana, French seafood. You have Pappasitos, the Tex-Mex. You have Pappas, which I think is just a steakhouse, maybe steak and seafood. And they have Pappas Barbecue. Any relation there?
So unfortunately, no. That's what my husband always says. he's like, if we were related to them, we wouldn't be, we wouldn't have been go through all the struggles of having our own business in the past like we did. But no, so unfortunately, no relation. And I just always like to add, because I hear that question often. Anytime you see Pappas, it's usually shortened from a longer Greek name. So my father-in-law is from Greece. And when he eventually came here to the States, the last name was Papaioannou, and now it's Pappas. So I sarcastically say, I'm glad your dad changed the last name, because we chopped off, it's like half of what the full name would be. So
another 3 syllables on the back end.
Exactly. Awesome. Exactly. Yes. So
awesome. Well, listen, thank you again for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. Guys, listen up.
Absolutely. And
great person to chat with. Definitely. We're going to put that link in the comments. Right, mariepapascoaching.com. Give her a buzz, check her out, get her book, get your business rolling, and hey, make some more profit and grow, because that's what it's about. Thank y'all for tuning in. As always, we do this show every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Next week, we are going to have the road warrior himself, Mr. Andrew Saxa from Reminder Media. So any of you agents that are out there getting ready to run events, to run maybe pharmacy locations, whatever you're getting ready for AEP, next week is going to be one you don't want to miss. So stay tuned and tune in. And as always, if you miss the live, it's okay. it's okay because all this goes to YouTube. You can rewatch it anytime you want. And if the long content is too much for, we've got shorts. We got them on Facebook. We got them on Instagram. We got them on TikTok. So go check them out. Subscribe. Get the bite-sized chunks if you need. And other than that, man, have a great week. We'll see you next time on Tuesday Training.